Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I am so excited to bring you today's guest. This is such an honor to introduce you to somebody I admire so much. This is Miss Mina Irfan. She is a best-selling author of a book that we're going to be unpacking today, Lady Balls. She is a tough love life coach, a mentor to many women, including myself, and an incredible teacher about spirituality, women empowerment, and just so much more. Her background of communications, anthropology, evolutionary psychology from Northwestern, you guys, a goddess. Literally, I'm so excited to get into it. Mina, first of all, happy belated birthday. Thank you
Oh,
for
thank
being here.
you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with all these sunflowers and having a really juicy conversation.
I'm so excited. Honestly, it's an honor to have you here. Like I was telling you before we started, this is a manifestation answered. I literally wrote this in my journal when I took manifest, and now we're here. So I'm super excited to get into it. Also, Mina, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much. Was there anything I missed on that intro that you wanted to add for everybody here?
It was beautiful. It was perfect.
Beautiful. So as I was sharing with you a moment ago, I actually just found your YouTube through a former client. And then after watching you for about 6 months, I started binging. And then from then to the Manifest course. And I think that's when you blew me away. And I realized the caliber of teacher that you are. Do you want to tell everybody how Manifest came to be or what it is that you teach before we dive into the book?
Sure. So Manifest is one of my more higher consciousness trainings. I started off just doing, personal development work just for my own sake. When I was a little girl, I have a background like many women. I mean, I don't think my story is that unique. I used to think it is, but as I've shared it, I'm like, you know what? Women have gone through a lot. Like a lot of women have gone through a lot. So I had, childhood sexual trauma in my past and just a lot of things that left me feeling um, like out of place, like I didn't belong, like people didn't get me, like I was unseen, like I was unwanted. And so my personal development inner work journey started very young as a little kid. Just I was obsessed with the reading. Books were my first and my first love and to this day, I mean, if it's like my go-to. I can pretty much live without people if I have books. Like that's how it is for me. So I started doing my own inner work journey. And and life took me through all of these like difficult paths that taught me really tough lessons and left me with a lot of scars that I had to unpack and kind of patch up myself. And then when I got, I had a really brutal divorce in my early 20s, left me as a single mom. It wasn't until I was 28 and remarried that I finally, for the first time in my life, had a safe space, and that's when I say, like, my real inner work started. Because I was doing inner work before that, but it was, like, kinda like survival inner work, like, just to get through the day, right? But at, like, 28, when my husband retired me and now I have the safe place and he's paying all the bills, I started really reflecting back on my life and my mom's life and my aunts and my grandmothers and all the other women around me and what was happening in their lives and the different decisions they had made and the different things that they had gone through. And I started a YouTube channel to kind of just document my own journey. It was just to connect with other women and document my own journey. I wasn't trying to teach it. Did not feel like I was worthy of teaching anyone else anything else, right? Because I was going through my own stuff. And I started healing massively, and it started reflecting on the outside. And the women that were following me, and which wasn't a lot of women, we're talking, a couple hundred at this time, and then a couple thousand, and it grew slowly, started asking questions and saying, "Hey, you look better, you sound more calmer, like, how'd you change this? How did you do this? How do" So they started asking questions, and I just started sharing, "Oh, this thing, this is what I did. This is the book I read. This is the inner work I did. These are the journal prompts I do." And eventually it just got to a point where they were like, "We need more, like, we need you to be, like, a life coach," and I was like, "What the hell is a life coach?" Right? So, I finally like, enough people asked that I Googled it, and I'm like, "Oh my god," like, with my background, what I've studied at university, and, like, with the various topics that I like know and have studied over the years, I was like, this job was made for me. Like, how did I not know this existed? So in 2016, I got certified as a life coach. 2017, I launched my first course, and it has been hit the ground running. Like I'm always yesterday, I was at my design, I was getting some clothes designed and I went to go pick them up. And the lady who designed my clothes is now also a subscriber. But here's the thing, she's a subscriber and she's in her mid 50s. Her daughter is a subscriber, and now she's telling me that her older relatives are starting to watch my content and they resonate. So that's the thing that fascinates me the most, is that my work seems to be so timeless that it's appealing to people in their 80s, in their 50s, in their teenage years, and like everything in between. So it's been an interesting journey and I'm still in it, very much still learning, still a student of life, and my thing is that I teach from my embodiment. And yes, I pull from these different disciplines that I have studied: religion, spirituality, evolutionary studies, psychology, all the stuff I do pull from there. But my main thing is my actual lived experience and embodiment.
Yes, and thank you for everything that you just said. Ties in perfectly to where I was hoping the conversation would go. First of all, thank you for showing up on YouTube, because in your mind, you're like, who am I to teach? Mina, like you said, your embodiment does that for you. I see myself in you so much as an immigrant, divorced in my 20s, literally not realizing how much I didn't know. And as you're talking about all the generations of like the mom and the daughter, I actually commented on your video the other day around how my mom actually purchased your book too. So we were reading it together.
Oh
And
my
the
God, that's
gift,
gonna make me cry.
but honestly, it's so beautiful because I didn't realize, obviously, you look at yourself and you're like, oh, I didn't have this. My parents were this. But to have this conversation with my mother, sharing your work with her and watching her have the same breakthroughs, except in her life, has been so healing. And generations literally heal with your work, because it's not just my family. My friend Tina, her sisters, and her mom were talking about the book over the holidays. That's why I'm like, I hope I get a chance to bring more eyes to it, because I don't think you realize how critted for generational healing the book is. I opened even the cover, and the dedication, my entire body lit up, because it was a feeling of like, this is exactly what it was intended to do. To like, for us to see the actual trajectory of like, trauma started in the womb, we're passing it down this whole time. And by the time one of us gets it, we're all getting healing because one of us decided to heal.
Yes,
Thank you.
literally 7 generations back, 7 generations forward.
It really is. It's really powerful what I've seen it do just for my mom and I. So I hope whoever's watching, I want to introduce you to Lady Balls. This book will change your life, Mina. When I tell you I have highlighted so much, I had to switch colors so that I could tell the little notes apart. There was so much gold. That was like a $10,000 course in a book. And I have worked with a lot of coaches. So that's, believe me when I tell you, that is a gold mine in that book. What led you to want to write it?
Oh my gosh. So babe, this was the book I didn't want to write, right? So this is a really unusual. I had written a book in 2016, this book, Contained in
Mhm.
Book, and Contained in Love, which was called something else back then. And at that time, I wrote this book right as I had just healed, trauma in my relationship with my husband. I had just come out of my autoimmune issues. Like for 5 years prior to that, I had been battling this autoimmune issues, and I literally had come from the doctor, and he was like, "It looks like you've never had RA. Like it's like gone." So I've checked all these things off my list. And there was something in me with this particular book that was like, I should document this. What if my kids like need this information, right? So I sat down and wrote this book in a week, and it was supposed to just be kind of a journal entry of things that I went through and that helped me with like little references. Hey, if this happens, this, and this. And I mentioned it to like a couple hundred of my subscribers at the time and then forgot about the book. Like it was just on somewhere on the internet and no one was buying it. Like eventually like my husband would tell me like $20 a month would come in. Like a few people would randomly find it because I wasn't talking about it. No one knew about it. It wasn't linked anywhere. So then this year what happened, 2023, is that people started saying to me, you should write a book. Still in my mind, I don't remember this book because in my mind it's like that's just something I wrote for my kids, right? So it's still I'm not like, hey, by the way, I have a book, go buy it. So I started noticing that I was getting very angry and annoyed when people were telling me to write a book. And that's really unusual of me because I will give you the shirt off my back. People ask me questions all the time and I will like stay and like answer. And so I started journaling on this saying, why are you getting annoyed? Like this is a compliment. They want you to write a book. Still not remembering that I have a damn book. So I started journaling on it and all this fear started coming up where like it's like, who the hell do you think you are to write a book? You know, it's different to like coach people and give, people advice, but like this is for like book writing is like for the big boys and the big girls. Like, who are you, right? So this was in July of this year. The next week or a few days later, I go off to teach my timeline jumping intensive in St. Thomas, US Virgin Islands. And I am over there telling the girls during my intensive, I feel like something's coming on. And they're like, what? I'm like, I don't know. I feel like something big is brewing. I can smell it. It's like a texture. But I can't tell you what it is. I was telling the girls, and they're like, interesting. I wonder what it's going to be. The intensive ends. I'm on the beach with my family. My husband takes the kids kayaking. He's like, do you want to come? I'm like, no, I just want to chill on the beach. He goes and he comes back with the kids, and I have 2 chapters of the book written on my phone. It just literally came through me.
Wow.
And when I came home, I continued writing. So this entire book, all 60,000 words, were written in 3 weeks, just poured out of me. The stories are all mine, but it's like it took absolutely zero effort. It was the most effortless thing I've ever done. And I've created over 83 courses, right? I
Yeah.
say over 60 because I'm selling over 60, but I have created over 83 courses. And this was the easiest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
It just wanted to write itself. It just poured out. And the hardest part was me getting out of the way. Like there were moments where I'm like, does anyone even care? Right? Like, is this even going to help people? But I was like, just Mina, shut up and stay out of the way. There's something bigger than you happening over here. And the feeling that I kept getting, my assistant kept mirroring this. She's like, I feel like you can intuit how big this is going to be and you're freaking yourself out.
Yes. Yes, and I agree 100% because I honestly, obviously, I was going to do the interview. I'm like, I should read the book. Mina, I read that in 2 days. I couldn't put it down. It was literally like you said, the words they may have flowed through you, but you were giving it's like instructions almost of how to deconstruct everything we believe, like being addicted to suffering, talking through all the stages of consciousness, then moving into relationships and money. Like it's not just one thing, it's literally the embodiment of a whole life in text in one book. It's so beautiful how you wrote that book.
Thank you. A part of me, like I received that compliment, but a part of me almost feels like I can't because it just was so easy. The
Mhm.
funny thing is that in the middle of writing it, I had an idea that, oh, maybe I should. Well, actually, what had happened is one of my students reached out when I mentioned that I'm writing this book and it's flowing out. And she said, I'm a ghostwriter. And I know you mentioned that you're already writing this book, but maybe I can help you. So I said, well, let's talk. So we get on a Zoom call and she's like, I can finish the book for you, blah, blah, all this thing. It will be all your work and I'm just going to interview you and write it out. And I'm like, let's sleep on it. And she goes, okay. And 2 hours later, I already knew. I was just like, no, I have to write this book. It has to flow out of me. And I know why now. In the process of writing this book, I think I activated my voice
Mhm.
on a whole nother level. And I don't think that there was a shortcut to that process. I couldn't have had someone else finish my thoughts or interview me and then write it out. I had to go through the process. It was like this tunnel that only I could walk through, and on the other end, there was this more conscious, more evolved new identity of a teacher that could hold the messages and the gritting of what is going to happen with this book.
Wow. Your words light me up because I honestly, I've seen it with my own eyes over the last 2 years, how much you've leveled up. Mind you, when I met you, you had already been on YouTube and you had courses and a following, but to watch you just 100,000 and then $1 million and all the trips and all the things. And it wasn't even the financial, it was the physical embodiment. Like you look younger and happier and healthier and life is just flowing. Mind you, when I found you, I would say I was closer to the self-aware phase one, which I'm excited for you to introduce everybody to all the stages. But Mina, I have you to thank for me slowing down and embodying and doing the work to get to a place where I can even feel the $1 million stage and be like, wow, this is actually a possibility for me. Like to be able to slow down that much in 2 years, that's all because you decided to show up.
Wow, I love that. I love what you said about like actually slowing down and doing the work because I think we've all been through that and I have too,
Mhm.
where we just wake up and we're like, We need to change something." And we might go and like get a haircut or get our hair color changed. I was a queen of that in my early 20s. Like I'd be going through stuff and it's like my hair was like the one that had to like bear the burden of that. Like I'd go get my hair fried, right? Like it's like all this stuff. But nothing would change internally all that much because you can buy new makeup, you could get a new hairstyle. And yes, on some level as women, those things do help make us feel a little better when we're going through stuff. But I wanna feel like Chanel and Louis Vuitton on the inside, Like, I don't want to just put a Band-Aid on it. I really do want to heal from the inside out, and that was the main thing for me. I didn't wanna traumatize my kids either,
Mhm.
because I started realizing that finally, like I said, at 28, when I married Irfan and he moved me to a different state, gave me a home, a car, credit cards, and I'm like, "Oh, like there's time to think now. There's time to reflect." And I started seeing my parents not as these people that ruined my life, but instead people that were human
Mhm.
and that were doing the best with the level of consciousness and the resources that they had been given as immigrants. Actually, I feel like they did better than most people could have done under the circumstances, and just starting to see them as human and saying, "Oh, remember when mom told you that story about what happened to her in childhood? That's why she said this to you, did this. That's the decision she made as a," and kind of like seeing the whole thing
Mhm.
as this living, breathing dynamic, and then diving into forgiveness and then saying, "Oh, wait a minute. If they did all of these things unconsciously and I was on the other end of it, well, what am I doing that like my children will have to bear the consequences of?" So that's where I was like, no, 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 I cannot infect my children with this. I have to up level myself. Like there's no other way.
Wow. Honestly, what I found extremely powerful is how you went deeper than just saying there are 4 stages of consciousness. You broke it down per phase. It was so eye-opening because I've heard it obviously through videos and conversations. And for those who don't know the 4 stages, do you want to briefly tell them what they are?
Sure. So as I was going through my own inner work journey, you know, I wasn't so aware that there were stages. But when I started coaching, it was really interesting because, in the beginning, I was just kind of like a general life coach, and people would come in with different problems, right? Like health problems or parenting problems or relationship problem, and none of those things necessarily would be connected, but I started seeing these interesting patterns. And I remember, this one day I was in meditation. I had woken up and I was doing a meditation, and my husband was working from home and he was typing on the computer next to me. So it wasn't even, I think about now, I'm like, it couldn't have even been that deep of meditation when someone's sitting on the computer, like on the bed next to you, typing away, right? So I remember just sitting there and I get these downloads of these 4 stages and I just keep my eyes closed and I'm like, babe, do me a favor, just type this, type this, type this. And I just start saying the stages and it starts saying the qualities. And so he opens up this tab and starts typing it out for me. And then I open my eyes and he's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet, but like, can you email that to me?" So he sends it over to me and I'm looking at it and I'm like, "Oh my God, that client fits in there. That's that." In 2014, I was there and it just started like really weirdly making sense. And I remember that same day, I went and I told the ladies about it on YouTube about these 4 stages. And the thing that shocked me, I think it was a 2-hour video, that initial video, is that as I was saying the stuff, I was hearing it for the first time. because what my husband had given me, if I had to guess, was maybe like 500 words. I mean, just like quickly what I had spit out. But
Wow.
when people were coming live and they're like, well, what does this mean? And what stage is this? And I was just saying it. I just knew it, but I didn't know it consciously. And so the next day we did it again, and then I knew more stuff. And the interesting thing is that every year I somehow know more information about these stages, and I'm waiting for the day. Like, I'm like, someday there's gonna be something someone's gonna ask me, and I'm not gonna be able to answer it, and it's not gonna fit. It hasn't happened. My audience has only grown, and somehow these stages have helped, hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, and they fit. And last year, maybe it was the year before that, maybe last year, we introduced the male versions, and they just fit perfectly. I'm like, oh my God, whoever made this up there, thank you, because they're perfect. And people give me credit for it. And yes, I downloaded them and they came through, but it's really weird because I look at these stages and how perfectly they work, and I look at it going, there's no way I could have done this. Like, without help, there's no way I could have done this. This is just, it's too good for something to be someone that a human create, like something that a human created is
Mhm.
what it feels like to me. The male versions just blew me away because I'm like, this is so perfect. How it just aligns so perfectly. So I'll
Okay.
go over them real quickly, actually. So the first stage of consciousness is the basic babe or basic boy stage. And unfortunately, it's estimated that this is like 97% of the world's population, which is kind of sad. And this is the stage where something happens in your childhood or just life, right? You're just going about your life and you are in kind of your wounded child. You are still viewing the lens of mommy didn't love me enough, daddy wasn't there for me, victimhood. I am a victim of society, the government, my parents, my boss, my husband, my wife, like someone else is to blame and has the responsibility for my life, right? It's like I am powerless. And when a woman is in this stage, here are some signs. You have trouble making decisions without consulting people. Like, you have to ask your best friend, your mama, and post it on Facebook. Or the I've done that, so I
I've
know
been
that
there.
really well. Yes, you have to. And unfortunately, it usually doesn't work because people will confuse you even more, because your mom might say something else, your best friend might say something else, or they might be saying the same thing, but in your heart that's not what you wanted to hear. So it's kind of this thing of like, you put other people, whether they're your actual parents or not, in kind of the mothering, fathering, authority position, and you're down over here. Another way you could find out is if you have trouble manifesting things for yourself. So it's like you can have money as long as your husband's controlling it. Or, you might be the queen of manifesting free stuff, because what does free do? It's like it has to come through someone else. Again, we're in that child parent dynamic. So a lot of self basic babes and basic boys, they appear to be more childlike in the way that they think, and there's this feeling of someone else is responsible for me in my life. The self-aware Barbie, and here's where it's different for men and women. So it's self-aware Barbie and self-aware Ken. The self-aware Barbie is something happened in your life where you internalize the following phrase: I have to do it all by myself. That's the main consciousness running, okay? Now, there's subconsciousness. You might be saying, well, no, I know my husband can do it, but he's not going to do it right. So I just have to fix it anyway. So I might as well do, like, there's different flavors of it. You are the one that like jumps in and fix things for your mom and your brother and your cousin and your colleague. It annoys you. You hate it a lot of times. You're like, oh, like, let me just do it. Okay. You're the one that asked a family or a friend to do something, and before they can do it, you're like, oh, they're taking forever, let me just do it. So you end up doing a lot of things by yourself, but your story is that no one wants to support me, I'm all by myself, I'm not loved, I've got to do it by myself, not realizing that you're actually creating that dynamic. You actually don't feel safe receiving help. and you sabotage it. You criticize the help when it comes, you redo it in front of the person just standing there. Like, so it's the overactive masculine energy in women. In men, how this shows up is when a man didn't have a very strong masculine role model in their life. Maybe they were raised by a single mother, or absentee father, and they mean well, and they end up marrying a self-aware Barbie, and then they chill on the couch while she's running around with her head cut out, doing everything by herself and criticizing and emasculating you. But the man blames her, not realizing that it's a dynamic that they're creating, right? So, for example, when I was in my self-aware Barbie, and I would say to my husband, "Oh, no, 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 you did this incorrectly. Let me fix it." Well, because my husband was raised with a very strong father in his household, and he's got uncles and cousins, and he would say, "No, this is the way I do it. This is how I'm going to do it." And he put me in my place and say there's more than one way of doing something. And so, so you need someone that instead of him just checking out, he'd say, "No, this is the way that I do it." So you need the self-aware kin to be able to check the self-aware Barbie. But unfortunately, they play out that dynamic where he's checked out and she's doing everything and then complaining. The $1,000,000 man and the $1,000,000 babe is the stage where the feminine and the masculine starts integrating. And scientifically speaking, if they were to, hook up machines and things, or the whatever they hook up, right, to you to see your blood panel, the way your brain is working, what they would see is the left brain and the right brain is working in sync together. So this is when you have heart-brain coherence. So the basic babe is very illogical. She's very almost childish, not childlike, but childish. She's just kind of like illogical eruption of emotions, addicted to suffering and drama. So she's like too much on the right side, where it's almost like, oh, this is coming around. You're crazy. Self-aware Barbie, she's too in her logics and too in her emotions, and the right side of the brain is not worked, right? Well, in the $1,000,000 man and $1,000,000 babe, both of those are working in sync together in the way God intended us to make decisions, with both the heart and the mind in conversation with each other. Okay, so the heart is in charge, but it's very much filtering things out through logic and rational and things. So when you're in that stage, things become easy. It's really the marriage between the divine and the human animal part of us, and where we can be grounded on the planet and still know that there's more to us than meets the eye, and there's more to life than meets the eye. And this is when businesses become easy, relationships become juicy, parenting is fun and something that you look forward to, and friendships, and you can have a full life and really be thriving, from all aspects. And this is the stage that when I say women get to have it all, so do men. We all get to have it all, but we need all of us working, all of us. We can't just be in fight or flight like, the lower stages. The high end divinity, this is now really, where you're more conscious than animal. So now this is where instead of taking from the field, you're giving back. This is where you stop thinking of just yourself and your family and your legacy, which there's nothing wrong with that, but thinking, okay, well, what can I actually give past just myself, and what's my mark on this planet? Like, I couldn't have just come here to manifest all these things. They were wonderful, but what do I want to be known for? Like, what's my piece and my contribution to the whole as a planet? And so these are going to be the people that make the biggest marks, right? The Nobel Peace Prize winners, Mother Teresa's, the people that, like, not only did they leave the planet better than they found it, they, like, people are still talking about them, decades, if not centuries after they've left, for the mark that they've left, and still building on what they've created on this planet. So those are the stages in a nutshell.
Ugh, Mina, I'm just blown away by you. I think it's funny how you say, I can't believe they came through me, but like projectors and human design, you guys have the keys, even if you're not aware that you have them. So you channeling this information and it being so accurate, I'm not surprised at all. It just validates the knowing of why projectors need to be leading the people. Because I didn't realize the different faces of the self-aware Barbie in depth until I read your book. And to see myself that I walked through all of them, through still wanting to be attached to the old friends and the drama and the victimhood, and then the spitting information, I built a business on that. I went and I was running my business, doing readings, I do all these other things, but every single time it was like I would read something and I had to share. I would watch something and I had to share. And then this year, I would say life humbled me, but truly it just slowed me down. It started last October with Manifest, like you call something in, and my word for the year was embodiment. I feel like that's what I got. Surrender, faith, humbleness, gratitude, slowing down. And after you get a taste of that $1,000,000 feeling, because it's the best way I can explain it, it's wow, this feels so different. And like sometimes you're almost afraid of the peace that comes with that. And finding myself between the two stages, I think this is where it's been pivotal having you as a mentor and as a guide and as somebody who's living it, because it's almost like there's no excuse. The information is out there. Someone's willing to take the time. And I remember I bought your 21-day embodiment course. Mina, it took me 3 tries to get through it because I would get to about day 10 to 15 and I was like, I can't do this. I can't sit in silence. I can't journal. And you think about it like, oh, I'm a life coach. I do all this stuff. But having no, let me find the word, feeling unable to slow down to the point where I could dedicate 5 to 10 minutes a day to a practice was too much. And in this year, finding myself slowing down my nervous system, getting more sleep, being more mindful, I understand now at a conscious level the work that it takes. But I think you make it look easy. And sometimes when I was in the self-aware basis or the basic levels, I almost wanted to rush it. And I ended up bypassing the work because I thought the work was like looking like I was doing it and not actually doing it, if that makes sense.
1000%. I have been there. We've all been there where we're just so excited about the information because we know it's life-changing and we just want to share it. However, when I used to do that, no one wanted to really hear it. Like I could see people rolling their eyes and I'm like, "Wait, what's happening?" That now the same information people are willing to pay me thousands of dollars for. Why? The difference is because I shut my mouth and embodied myself in it, and then it was like, "Wait, what does she know?" Versus she's someone embodied that's just spitting information. So I've had to learn that, and I shared this in the book, the hard way. I've done some really embarrassing things. We're trying to recruit people onto my diet or whatever before I've actually embodied it, and I cringe when I think about it now, but it was a part of the process.
See, but you sharing that just makes it okay for other people to go through that too. Because I have found myself starting a diet or, oh, I'm going to work out and like recruiting all my friends and they would fall off and I would fall off. Versus now I'm 30 pounds lighter. And I'm telling you, I can physically see the shift. And that's where I know the work is actually taking place. And my favorite thing that you taught me was swallow it, just shut up. Because that was so hard to do when you think you know everything to realizing how little you actually know.
Absolutely, and I almost had to go through this thing where I'm like, "You know what? I'm not gonna share anything now unless they can see it and want it badly enough that they're willing to pay me for it."
Mhm.
And so that's what I had to like just to keep my own mouth shut because I love to share. And I think all of us like when you say that, it comes from a place of kindness. Like we are not those kind of people that are gatekeeping or don't want to share. We're
Mm-mm.
the kind of people that we find something amazing. We're like, "Hey, I want
Literally.
everyone to have it," right? But they don't want it unless they can see the results and they really resonate with it. And then, so when I told myself, hey, if they're going to like see it on you and then they ask and they're not just like asking to be nice, they're willing to pay for it and commit to it and invest in it, then you share. Like that, I had to make that own boundary with myself.
Thank you for that, because I feel like that's the season that I'm in, is realizing like what is worth sharing, when to share, what to share, and what things I'm still working on because I'm human, right? I'm not going to get it right all the time. But I think one of the things that impacted me the most was when you talked about core beliefs and having your personal values. Mina, I didn't realize that I never really did that work until I was reading it and I was like, wait, when was the last time I journaled out like what I stand for? What I believe, where the boundaries are. And obviously, you know, I'm a coach, I know boundaries, but you were talking about boundaries out and in. That resonated so deeply for me because it's almost like I need to protect me from me and not like from the world.
That is so good. That's such a valid thing. And I think a lot of people, when you see like, when when we discover the word boundaries and realize we don't have it, we all go like searching for it. And then we
Mhm,
find like this very generic information, which under certain circumstances might be helpful. But I feel like people like you and I that resonate with more like people pleasing and like over giving,
yep,
like when I tried some of those generic things, I actually got myself in worse situations because I didn't actually have any internal boundaries. I was playing boundaries. It's like playing house. It's not a real house. You're just
mhm,
pretending. So it was like pretending to have boundaries and then getting mad that people were breaking my imaginary boundaries. And so when I really started reflecting, I was like, what the hell is a boundary? Not what some book or some YouTube video. What the hell is a boundary? And I started actually studying some of the predatory people in my life. That's how I learned how what boundaries were. Because I'm like, these people are really good at breaking them, but they're also really good at like not letting other people break their boundaries.
mhm,
So like, let's study them. Let's stop trying to study nice people because obviously they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Okay. And even their boundaries are too nice.
mhm.
So let's study the predator. So I started following those people around and studying them. And that's how I learned to set boundaries. Real boundaries. And the number one thing is that what I learned, 99.9% of boundaries are energetic boundaries. They're the stuff that you just have to set with yourself. You don't even my favorite part, because I'm like I don't like confrontations. Like that's not my vibe, right? I'm not trying to like get in anyone's face. It was like, oh, my favorite part is I actually do not have to discuss this with anyone. They
Mhm.
can't twist it around. They can't, gaslight me. There's like nothing they can, it's internal. Oh, I behave and move differently and think differently when I actually have internal boundaries. So that's what it came down to. And I actually prefer it that way.
That is so liberating. I mean, I'm an immigrant myself. My background is Dominican. And in the culture itself, what are boundaries? What do you mean you're like an equal to your parents or like you get to draw boundaries or lines around things? And when you were talking about predators, oh my gosh, like it's literally passed down and it's not even conscious. I realized I was activating the predator in them because, like you said, we give too much and we're available and we back down. Like, oh no, I can't help you. But wait, yes, I will because I love you. Like that energy was literally creating so much turmoil in my life and being able to see it. When I was reading it, I was laughing because it was many times. And you were talking about self aware Barbies is financial help, guilty. Basic babe,
Mhm.
it's your time and energy, guilty. Like I help people move and I paid for things. And in return, I'm like, what did that get me? What kind of validation came from trying to be the good girl versus just saying no the first time? Like liberating to read that and like embody it because it literally changes your life. You have a lot less problems when your boundaries are with you.
Exactly. And the most shocking thing for me through this process was I thought that I'm going to do this and my relationships will suffer, but I needed it so badly that that's a consequence I was willing to face.
Mhm,
So I went in going, people are going to be mad, but you know what? I've had it and that's okay. But people didn't get mad. People actually started respecting me more, celebrating me more, appreciating me more, even though I was doing less, which is so shocking, right? Because you would think before when I was like giving, 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 they'd
mhm,
appreciate it. Nope, it was never enough. They were never satisfied. When I stopped doing zero,
mhm.
just behaving like a lady, there's so many things in my culture that women just don't do. So just reverting back to that, like even being surprised that why would you expect a woman to do that? Like going back to those things, people started respecting me more. So that was a very shocking outcome, a very happy one.
Oh, see, but I love hearing that because it just validates the work that I'm doing right now. It's going to compound into that. I'm excited till where it's $1 million babe 90% of the time. And like, because I'm still kind of fluctuating and I embrace
And
that,
that's
right? But It was realizing how I don't think I've ever had a healthy relationship in my life. Mind you, I've been married, right? But it was friendships and family and my partner. And I look back at what is healthy, having a love list, thinking of what you want, what a man is supposed to do. Me and my mother on the phone, that the chapter about women are the gatekeepers of DNA, that's the one that cracked me open. I cannot tell you how much I cried, how much I realized of, wow, we give so much because we moved into this culture where you're expected to like go out and date and sleep around. And, I went through my phases. Some of mine weren't as healthy because, I was rebelling, right? But to realize how much I regressed, how much I gave away, how much I didn't know. And I know you hesitated to go into that, the savage or the let's talk about what the culture says. But I grew up Catholic, and religion distorted the idea of no sex before marriage or this or that, but like they never told you why, right? You backing it up with evolutionary data and explaining what it does to your body and to your soul, and me having lived it, Mina, that chapter in itself, I think that was the master course of a lifetime. There was
Mm.
so much that was healing just reading those words. Like, I can't wait to go back and like redo the journaling prompts. That's how good it was.
I'm so glad to hear that. And the interesting thing is that a lot of religious organizations have reached out to me
Mhm,
saying thank you, which was also very shocking because I guess my own perception, you know how projectors have trouble seeing ourselves,
mhm,
has been that I'm saying this to my girls, but like hush hush, let's keep it
mhm,
quiet. Like I hope too many people don't hear it outside of the people, my people, right?
mhm,
Because there's this internal story of like this is too much, like it's too counterculture.
mhm,
Then when religious organizations started reaching out and started celebrating me and saying that unfortunately a lot of people have fallen out of religion, and because of that they've fallen out of the good things that religion was trying to
mhm,
tell them, and you're doing it in a way that they can understand. Some people say, oh, why do you curse this and that, and I laugh about it. I'm like, you know, when I talk to my kids, I talk in a certain way. That's why they listen to me. I talk to in a way that's funny, that's like kind of shocking. It's like, "Oh my
mhm,
God, mom!" Like, it gets their attention. And that's the way that a good teacher and a good speaker does that. Whichever audience you're going into, you're funny, you're relatable, you're someone they can connect with, right? And so the fact that I come from such a very traditional culture, and then I'm cursing, and then I'm like, saying I say all these like funny kind of like 90s Chicago like kind of funny things, and people love that. It's funny, it gets attention. But then if you look at my core message, I'm actually, telling people how to be healthy and how
mhm,
to, self-destruct. So, I guess I was judging my own self in a way that like why are religious organizations watching me? Oops, I'm cursing. They don't care. No one said anything about, in fact, they've actually celebrated the way that I deliver things. They're like, you're getting to the newer generations in a way that they will listen.
mhm. And again, I'm only 33, right? So for me, it's like if I had this information when I was 20, I repeated a pattern with my mom. My mom got married at 23, very young, had three, almost four babies. My dad was the first guy that asked. Obviously, 35 years, they've put in the work, they're there, right? But for me at 21, I was like, oh, somebody asked me to marry them. Let's get married. Mina, it was toxic. It was my trauma embodied, but obviously you attract who you are, right? So I just left the trauma and then I married someone who mirrored me. And oh my goodness, there was no mindset of growing. There was no personal development. There was no looking for help in any way. So when I left that relationship, I was a shell of myself. And then, mind you, I've been dating since. I'm recently single and I'm 33 now, right? So there's the pressure of, ooh, I should have babies or I should have this. But to have this information now, it's almost like it's never too late because whatever's meant to come, like, yeah, maybe I'm meant to have babies. Hopefully, maybe I'm not. What a gift that I'm able to do it the right way. And I'm able to get this work in before I reproduce, before I bring kids into the world who go into like repeating a pattern they don't even realize they're doing until they've left it behind. So honestly, thank you. That I'm telling you, this entire book, you guys, that this chapter in particular, if you resonate with divorce or sexual trauma or any of it, it will blow your mind. And it's not even, a religious message or anything like that. It's just genuine information of like what happens to your body, what risk are you taking, your mindset, your well-being. Like there's so much gold in this book, Mina. I couldn't thank you enough. I'm just honored to have this time one-on-one with you to like go deep into this stuff because you are an embodiment of like it can get better. And I think that's why people look up to you so much. Obviously, as a projector, you might not see it all the time, but for us to have a role model, to have somebody who's like showing us what's possible for us as women, especially minority women, I don't even have words to express what you've done just by existing. Like you said, I get paid to show up. You do. Just you being is enough to light up the world. So hopefully it's not too much, but I genuinely just to have a moment to say it to your face. I'm just grateful that I get to be a part of it.
That means the world to me. Thank you so much. And I receive all of the words. And as a projector, we need to hear those things because we can't really see our own self. So I do appreciate it. And I feel like I needed to hear it today. So like I feel like that was divine that we had the schedule today and I heard that. In every woman, I see my mother, my sister, my daughter. And so that's why I think that women of all ages are able to connect because that's literally how I see it. Like I wanted my mother to live her best life. I want my sisters to live their best life and I want my daughters to live their best life. And with a little bit of guidance and a little bit of encouragement, they have all the tools within them to do so.
Yes. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up for the day? Any last words, any last messages?
I'm going to say trust yourself. As women, we have, and there's an evolutionary reason for this. We do have a tendency of trusting things more outside of us. And it's easy to kind of get swayed by that, especially if it's a group of people telling us something. Then we're like, oh, well, if it's a group of people, then they must be right, right? It's just little old me against like so many people. But trust yourself. There is a softer voice inside of you that's always guiding you in the right direction. We tend to second guess it. We tend to override it. We tend to want to ask for things outside of ourselves. Even anything that you're reading in my book, even anything you're hearing me say, always true test it within yourself. And that could be as simple just saying, okay, that's interesting. How do I really feel about that internally? And without going into that logic mental, but just like, how does that feel? Like, does that make me feel good? Does it make me feel empowered? Does it feel right? Even if it feels scary, but does it feel right? Because often things that are different will feel right, but then scary.
Mhm.
And that's a good thing. I'm always putting myself in that situation because that's like, oh, I'm doing something new. But does it feel just internally wrong? And if you have to constantly talk yourself into something, typically that's not the right thing for you
Mhm.
because there's something in you that's saying not yet or not ever. And so trust yourself. There is an internal guidance system that's so much more beyond anything that you can receive from just the logic part alone. And if you can train that part by just trusting it more and more, your life will be completely turned around.
So beautiful. And honestly, very, very true. In human design, fear and intuition live in the same place. I like to say that fear is just intuition that got lost. Sometimes we just got to drop in, feel into it, and you will get the answer. But trust yourself. You heard it from Mina. Mina, thank you so much. It's been such an honor, such a pleasure. Thank you for spending this time with us. For everybody watching, I will leave the links below to her book, her courses, her YouTube. You need Mina in your life. Do not doubt it. This will be the best $14 you've ever spent. It literally changed my life, and I've been watching her for 2 years. So believe me, there's something here for you too. And if you love this video, give it a like, leave us some comments below. And thank you for being here. Have a beautiful day, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.